I've done a few videos on Krissy in the past, and some of my older content I wasn't like a massive fan of. I didn't dislike it or anything, don't get me wrong, I never dislike anyone's content. I just wasn't a huge fan of. Christmas has been and gone, but hopefully you had a very good holiday season. We're back to regular content now. I said, well, what is regular content? That's a great question because I'm a bit unsure myself. On the agenda today, we've got a hat, we've got a video of Krissy Cela and her perfect chest, shoulder and tricep workout for women. We've also got the usual goals that I'm going to set for the video. And the first one is obviously going to be 1,100 likes in the first 24 hours on the video. That's the goal we're going to shoot for, and I would really appreciate if we could get there. If you're watching this video and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'm going to ask you a favour. If you come away from this video having either smiled or learnt something, then I would really appreciate it if you did click the red button down below and subscribe to the channel, and maybe even the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. So at the end of every video, I do comment question of the week, in which I answer a question from the comment section of a previous week. If you have a question you want me to answer, drop it down below in the comment section and I shall do so. I'm dreaming of summer, so we're going to pretend it is summer. I reckon this might stop me getting too tanned. I know what you're thinking, Harry, how tanned you are already is frightening. I know, it is scary. First thing I want to discuss is obviously the title. Probably clickbait purposes, I understand that, you know, YouTube does YouTube things. I think it's a big misconception that your gender should severely alter how you train. I think the fundamental factor to consider when looking at training and how you should train is going to be more your goals rather than your gender. Krissy goes through a warm-up at the start of the video, which I do love to see. We like a thorough warm-up before a video. I respect it, so well done. We're going to skip forward to the main workouts, go through the exercises, and we're going to discuss some bits and bobs. The first movement is a barbell bench press.
If you're doing this exercise by yourself, don't put clips on the barbell, because just in case it doesn't come back up, you can fling the weight from one side to another.
Bench press is one of the few movements where you're like, oh, if I don't have a spotter, is this going to be my last day? I'm going to be honest, I've been in that position before. I've racked it, I've looked at the weigh, and I've just had that self-doubt where I've been like, have I overly tickled this pickle because I'm a bit nervous right now? And then I'll get to the halfway point and I'll be like, you know what? I didn't even get to say goodbye to my dog. The weight will come back down. Seconds feel like hours. I'm in the abyss. I'm done. I'm over. What you do is roll to the side, roll to the other side, you're laughing. But in all honesty, if you can, I would definitely get a spot, just saying.
You're gonna see a different variety of how people do a chest press. Some people do an overly extended back, just like so. And it's like so overly extended, you can almost put like a massive box in there. I
think what Krissy's referring here to is maybe more like the powerlifters, because obviously in powerlifting you kind of want to reduce your range of motion by as much as possible. So people do obviously arch to an impressive standard, we'll say. What Krissy's saying here, we have one slight arch, it is definitely a yes. So don't fall into the trap where a lot of people say flat back on the bench. No, no, no. We're going to get to that shortly, but no, no, no.
When you're flat on the bench, your shoulders should retract back.
Absolutely. So the big thing when you're doing any kind of pressing movement is shoulders back and down. So I like to think about tucking my shoulders into my back pockets. Puts your shoulders in a much safer and more stable position, and will naturally create a bit of an arch as well, which is a good time. If I let my shoulders sit in their normal position and I bench, that's as far back as I can go. As soon as I tuck them back and down, and maybe tuck my elbows slightly, I'm basically to the chest right now. Therefore, I can go through the range of motion that I'm hoping to go through in a much safer manner.
Bring the barbell to your chest, and then push back up.
I know a few of you are probably wondering, what's on Krissy's wrists? And those are wrist wraps, so they ultimately provide some additional support for the wrist, which make it harder to basically buckle. Here, I can move my wrist pretty freely, like so. Wrist wraps being on, I'm really going to struggle to move them, but you don't have to use them. It really is preference. Krissy's touching her chest on some wrist. She didn't on that one. She does on this one. If you can, I would definitely recommend going through the full range of motion, which is touching your chest. Another thing I want to look at her elbow positioning in relation to her wrists. You can see how the elbows and wrists aren't quite in one line, so rather than coming down like this, she's kind of like this. So what we want in an ideal world is to stack the wrists and elbows in one line. None of this, none of this. In fairness, that's something I'm actually quite bad at myself, because I tuck my elbows a bit too much because I'm very tricep dominant. I do often find my elbows kind of falling in slightly, which I do need to address and work on. The big thing here is her leg positioning. Her knees are ever so slightly below the hips. We want to try and get them a little bit lower if we can, and by doing so we can almost increase the arch slightly, and we bring the feet back a bit. We can then essentially use the legs to help drive the barbell up, Just means of essentially increasing, potentially optimizing how much weight you can shift. Another thing there is stability. When your legs are planted and locked in and you're really driving those feet into the floor throughout the entire movement, you're much more stable. You've got that stable base, which is what we want to see. A lot of people kind of press straight up and straight down. So they'll kind of like go down, up, down, up. If you do that, you end up pressing kind of slightly away from you. We want to press ever so slightly back. The bench press kind of line should not be straight, so there's a slight curve towards the rack. If I drew a line from where I touched the chest to where I finished the rep, is if I touch the chest, it'll probably be near enough around the nipple. When I finish the rep, it'll probably be about the mid-chest. You know my thoughts on the bench press. It is not a fantastic movement for hypertrophy, but again, I cover that in the Athlete X video. Straight off the bat, you can see incline dumbbell press is a fantastic movement. It's actually one of my favourite incline movements. I actually do really like dumbbell presses in general. In personal opinion, I think the incline is too upright. I would probably drop it down to about 30 degrees or so. At least 1 pin down, maybe 2 pins down, I can't really tell. Because at the moment, we're kind of leaning towards biasing the anterior delt a bit more than we probably like to at this stage. Provided the angle of the bench is a bit more favourable, we'll say, I do really rate the incline dumbbell press. Great for stretching out the clavicular fibres of the chest, being like the upper fibres of the pec. So the thing I like about this is she's not flaring her elbows out. She's tucking them ever so slightly, and I like that. Look at the humerus, so the upper arm bone. This is kind of what I said in the Athlete X video where I have the issue with the bench press. It limits how far across your chest the humerus can travel. The dumbbell, almost that converging movement, allows you to come a lot more across the chest. Therefore, based on my preference and my opinion, preferred for pec development. Good tempo, really nice tempo actually. So controlled down, holding at the top a second, exploding up. Good stuff. I'll tell you what I also like about this is Krissy is showing herself shifting some solid weight.
Grab this machine by the handle. You're gonna have a slight bend to your elbows. You're gonna bring in just like so.
Fantastic movement. I love to see it. Good information there with a slight bend in the elbows. If the elbows are straight, the arms are straight, it does put a lot of pressure in the bicep, but there's kind of like a tip in a second. We're not really going to talk too much about the side raises because I have covered this a lot in recent videos. So let's look at the pec fly. So big thing here, like with any chest movement, shoulder blades back and down. Lock them in. That's what we want to see. So as we come back, there's a slight bend in the arms. Like to see that's good. Again, takes a bit of pressure off the biceps. As we then contract and reach the kind of end portion of the movement, so the peak contraction, ideally we want to straighten the arms. So we go from a slight bend, slight bend, slight bend, up, up, up. As we get to the top, straighten the arms. So straightening the arms allows your humerus to travel a bit further across the chest, which then allows you to shorten the pec even further. And when we get to the top, like so, we want to hold the peak contraction. But again, straighten the arms out here and try and get the handles and all hands together to shorten the pec fully, and then hold it there for a second or so. Make those reps of very high quality.
When you're doing a shoulder press, you're actually hitting a lot of front and middle.
The shoulder press is a lot more anterior delt dominant than people realise. Anterior being front, so the front delt portion, then obviously you get the side, then you've got posterior being the back. So the kind of 3 primary heads of the shoulders. Pressing is going to be very anterior delt heavy. So I know she's using one of these benches, these kind of half benches. I'm not really a big fan of them. I feel like they don't really provide upper back support, and because they're locked in one position, you are stuck in this upright position. I think in an ideal world, to make the press even more favourable for the anterior delts, you'd want to be kind of probably a bit further back than you would normally go. So obviously you've got upright, you've got one down, maybe even one further than that. If you want a bit more anterior delt spice, we lock it back even further. Tuck the elbows in a bit more, they're quite flared at the moment, want a bit more of a tuck. I'll shout out JPG Coaching for that one from the old TikTok machine. He did teach me that, and he has helped me a lot with my understanding of biomechanics, as he is the king of biomechanics. Again, front raises, I'm not a massive fan of. Again, you can do them if you want to, it really is preference, but if you do enough pressing, I don't really think you need to. Face pulls, I know Krissy goes on to them now. We're not going to cover them. Like the side raises, I have covered them a lot recently, and I did actually speak about them in the Athlete X video. Krissy does go on about the face pulls, how some people love them, some people hate them. I quite like them personally, mainly for the external rotation, because when I was doing a lot of pressing work when powerlifting, I did find doing this external rotation work through face pulls did help my shoulder health. You could definitely argue that for the rear delts there are better movements, and I would probably agree with that. The final movement of the workout before we can go into the overall analysis, the tricep pushdown. You
want to bring it down and down again, just like so, getting that last bit of squeeze. You're going to bring it down and down again. but try and push it forward.
The straight bar does allow you to go a lot heavier, I found personally, so that's obviously solid. If we like going heavy, that's good stuff. When looking at like placing greater emphasis on certain heads of the tricep, I personally prefer doing movements that allow me to get my upper arm and elbow behind the body. So you see here, the elbow is very much kind of in front of the body. Do a tricep push down with the elbow in front of the body. Gradually move that elbow back behind the body. In front of the body, lock out, work behind, there. So you'll notice once you get the elbow behind the body, you get much more of a pinch on the back of the triceps, being the long head, which is going to have greater emphasis placed on it if the elbow is behind the body. And the long head is obviously the big juicy meaty head, which runs down here. And a way of kind of making push down movements more long head dominant is maybe using like a double rope, which really allows you to get your elbows and upper arm behind the body and fully contract and shorten the triceps. The reason why we say double rope versus single rope is because with the single rope, they're not actually that long, so it does kind of limit your ability to get that elbow and like upper arm behind the body, whereas the double rope being much longer, you can really take it to that fully shortened position. But to be honest, that's it. That's a workout. We're going to quickly look over some sets and reps, as you'll see. I know a lot of people are probably thinking, wow, only 3 movements for the pecs. And to be honest, I actually back that. I would train my chest maybe once or twice a week. I'm not so much looking at number of movements, I'm more looking at like number of sets. But personally, I would split my chest workout in a very similar manner, which would be 2 presses and 1 fly. So I would probably do like a converging hammer strength press, then an incline press, and then a pec deck fly. So very similar workout, kind of just really swapping out the bench press more than anything. Number of sets is solid. You maybe do this as like a slightly higher volume chest day, then you could maybe do another chest day, maybe upper body day, either earlier on in the week or later on in the week with slightly less volume to accumulate like a good amount of weekly volume or weekly sets, which is good. But it's a lot of 12 reps, 8 to 10, so very small kind of rep ranges. Again, I've covered this so many times before, so I'm not actually going to go into too much detail on it. I think I spoke about this in the Aaron Stern video, where I basically said if you're taking the muscles to, if not close to failure, which you should be if you're looking at optimizing hypertrophy, having that small range is quite limiting, because ultimately if you get 12 reps and that's failure, you're probably not going to be able to get 12 reps again. Rest periods, you rest as long as you need. If you want to give your muscles the best chance at matching reps, I'd probably rest for about 2 to 4 minutes myself. I don't want to see you resting for 15 minutes between sets, because you get a bit lazy and you got a bit distracted on TikTok. You know, you went on For You page, suddenly got a bit wild and you're like, oh wow, it's a dog. I'm the same, I do it too. There is minimal difference, if any difference, from the research I've read regarding muscle hypertrophy between going to failure and close to failure. Again, JPG initially taught me this, but then I kind of did further reading on it from Dr. Mike Israetel and other names. People are notoriously bad at gauging where failure actually is. That's why I say go to failure, because if you've hit failure, you've probably gauged where failure is pretty effectively. Honestly, I think Krissy has come a long way. I've done a few videos on Krissy in the past, and some of my older content I wasn't like a massive fan of. I didn't dislike it or anything, don't get me wrong, I never dislike anyone's content. I just wasn't a huge fan of regarding her resistance training and hypertrophy work. I think Krissy has come a long way, and I am actually quite impressed by that. Technical things that I think, in my opinion, could be improved, but I have my own technical things that I know I need to improve as well. Same thing regarding content, and Krissy mentioned this earlier on. Always learning something new every day. Krissy is, I am, and we're both trying to do what we can to kind of bring our new and hopefully improving knowledge to our respective viewers and audience. And as I mentioned earlier, I do really respect that Krissy is showing herself shifting some solid weight in a lot of cases, and I think she's doing a really good job at not only just promoting resistance training, but also promoting lifting heavy. And last thing I do want to very quickly mention is I'm aware that Krissy has recently shared some health concerns on her Instagram, which I have seen pop up recently. Health concerns can be very anxiety provoking, especially a lot of uncertainty, and I just want to say that I'm optimistic that everything will be okay, and I wish Krissy all the best. But now, quickly, we must jump on to common questions of the week. What do you think about reverse dieting? Does it work? Who would you recommend it to? It's a tricky one, because ultimately with it, again, I think it very much depends on the person, their goals, a lot of things to consider. But personally, if I were to kind of like think about reverse dieting, if I'd gone through a period of, let's say, a deficit for maybe a bodybuilding show or something like that, where I've been in a deficit for a prolonged period of time, I would personally try and get back to maintenance as quickly as possible. Reverse dieting too carefully can almost result in you losing more weight, which is kind of counterproductive to what I would want to achieve at that stage. Like I said at the start of the video, 1,100 likes in the first 24 hours is the goal, so I'd really love it if we get there. If you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below and subscribing to the channel, maybe even the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. And if you too have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, drop it down below for comment question of the week and I shall do so. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my summer headwear, which is not particularly appropriate for the season we're currently in. And thank you for tolerating the video.